How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That's right, 1939 comedy, drama, political movie directed by Frank Capra, who is known for directing It's a Wonderful Life. With and like that movie, this movie stars James Stewart as well as Jean Arthur and Claude Rains. And in this movie, we are introduced to Jefferson Smith, the head of the Boy Rangers, an idealist, and in his state, a senator passed away, so he was selected to go to Washington to represent them in the Senate, and he has a bright idea to put in a national boys camp to send young boys to camp to get them off the streets, teach them some good new things. But when the corrupt boss of his state, Jim Taylor, or threatens it, and the political corruption of his state is exposed, and he is threatened with expulsion. Jefferson Smith needs to prove his innocence and expose the corruption in his state. So, before I continue on, this is going to be part of a theme that I'm going to do for the next couple months on this channel because usually January and most of February is a slow month for new movies. Nothing really exciting and unique, I feel like, comes out. So I figured why not review some older movies that I feel like are under the radar. They may be well known, but a lot of younger people may not know about them. Get some recommendations out there, put them out there, check out because I think they're hilarious, I think they're great, or I think they're unique. And I feel like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, for a movie that came out in the late 1930s, is probably one of the most relevant movies today because a lot of the themes in this movie you can say has happened at any point in the United States history, or there's been hints of political corruption, whether it was 1960s or currently today in the 2020s or the 2000s or the 1980s, the 1970s, 1990s, you name it. To me, this is probably one of the most relevant movies. And yeah, this movie doesn't have what we have nowadays that captures the craziness of politics today. We don't have They didn't have cell phones or cameras. It's recording everything and putting it on social media like TikTok or Twitter or Facebook. But basically, the media in this movie are the newspapers and the radios. There wasn't even televisions that was showcasing what was happening on the Senate floor. But still, you don't need that stuff for this movie to be relevant because you can make the case that regardless of what political party you're affiliated with and what politicians you feel are corrupt or not, there is corruption that does exist. And it doesn't even happen in politics. Some people believe that there's institutes of religion that are corrupt, that there are forms of business that are corrupt. So when it comes to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, it's a relevant movie beyond politics, and Frank Capra does such a great job in capturing that. And a lot of people don't realize this. When this movie first came out, this movie had gotten negatively received, not by audiences, I don't think by film critics, but more so the politicians in Washington, D.C., that felt like it was an inaccurate portrayal and it's going to put in beliefs into the audiences that we're all corrupt and all of that. But even if not all politicians are corrupt, there are many politicians that are corrupt. The Washington press at the time didn't like how they were perceived because they're also portrayed in this movie as loving to capture politicians and spreading lies about politicians to make them look bad. There's a sequence in the movie that's actually hilarious that portrays Jefferson Smith as some yokel that's going to cause a lot of bizarreness in Washington, and he's like tracking all the reporters down and punching them down, which is hilarious. But you also feel bad for Jefferson Smith as well. But also, this movie was also banned in a few countries. Germany banned this movie. It was around the time when World War II was happening and Nazi Germany was taking over. Mussolini in Italy had banned it. Spain did. But at the same time, this was also a movie that around the time right before France was occupied by Germany, this was the last movie that was being shown in cinemas as well. So this was also a movie that while some countries banned it, some countries observed it and loved it because it gave them some hope. So with this movie, this is a perfect blend of comedy and drama. There's many scenes in which you find funny, whether it be some of the scenes with Jefferson Smith, talking the heads off of people about how much he loves America or like what he believes America is, his ideas, to the drama in the second half where he's trying to prove his innocence and call out the corrupt political machine that is Jim Taylor and others. And this movie is also a 1930 definition of a 1930s political thriller because this movie does involve politics, but it also does it in a way that doesn't bring up what political party these characters are in. You don't know what political party Senator Smith or Senator Payne are in or what political party Jim Taylor's involved in. You don't really know any of that stuff. And that's fine because it's really just left off into interpretation. For all we know, they could be part of some fictional third party that doesn't exist in the movie. And I like that it kind of leaves you up to figuring it out. But I want to get into James Stewart's character, Jefferson Smith, because James Stewart's probably one of my favorite actors of all time. I enjoy him in any movies, and I loved him in It's a Wonderful Life. I've already reviewed these movies on the channel, but I loved him in Vertigo and Rear Window. He was excellent in those movies, and here he's once again excellent. He's this young idealist that, he's very naive, and he's got this very like giddy, he, like excited charm to him at first when he comes to Washington, but that makes him so likable and relatable because he's finally living this dream. He's in Washington. He's in awe of the monuments. The Lincoln Memorial scene where he's there is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And he's just such an easy character to root for because you love that he seems so pure, so pure-hearted, so caring, so happy to be there. But you also understand his frustration at times, whether it's how he feels the media is portraying him, how he feels like an underdog, how pain betrays him later on in the movie, how hurt he is, how frustrated he is by this corrupt system, and seeing one of his political heroes in Senator Payne not only frame him, but be part of Jim Taylor's corrupt political machine. And then you've got Jean Arthur, who she gives a great performance. She plays his assistant, Miss Saunders, Clarissa Saunders, sorry. And at first, she's very just done with Washington. She's very unhopeful, and she doesn't think much about Smith at first, but getting to know him, working with him on this bill, hearing his speeches about what he believes about America, yeah, just like uplifting and giving her hope, and how she becomes his hope later on in the movie. And by the way, this movie came out in 1939, as I said before. Gonna be a ton of spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie by now, you should probably off the video. But if not, but if you've seen it already or don't care about spoilers, then keep watching. Anyways, she helps inspire him when he's down. He's ready to leave Washington, and how she encourages him to keep fighting, to me, is one of the best signs of character development. And also, not to sound like ultra woke or anything, because I don't see myself as ultra woke. This is one of the best early portrayals of a female character in movie. This character that is sick and tired of this political system that she sees as corrupt, encouraging someone else to take a stand, being this empowered woman character. Probably one of the best early portrayals of a female character by far. And she gave a great performance in here. But it's also Claude Rains' performance that I think needs to be talked about more as Senator Payne. This character that was friends with Jefferson's dad back in the day and is Jefferson's idol, and he's his mentor. And at first, despite, you can tell he's part of the Jim Taylor like corrupt political machine, he's looking out for Smith. He's encouraging him to spread bills, coming to his defense when people say, oh, he's not qualified to be a senator and all that. But then when it gets in the way, he's doing all he can to try to get Smith out of this situation. He doesn't want Jim Taylor hurting him. But at the same time, he can't ruin what's been already built. He's the definition of what Harvey Dent said in The Dark Knight, where you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. In this case, it's either you get out of politics early or you stay in long enough to be one of those corrupt villains. And even when he frames Smith and is making these false accusations, and turning everyone against him. You can tell by his expression that it pains him to do this. And to me, one of the most telling scenes of the movie, which we're getting into the end of the movie, is when the filibuster happens. And Smith is talking on the floor for over 24 hours. I'm pretty sure it's 25 hours. And he's losing his voice. He's looking tired. And these letters are coming in. And the letters, despite the people of his home state deep down supporting him, the influence Jim Taylor has between the scare tactics he's sending his slugs out to attack the boy rangers of Smith's troop that are trying to spread the good word. They're also attacking people that are supporting Smith. Despite these letters coming in and asking him to step down, he still looks at Payne and talks about lost causes, and those are the causes worth fighting for, and how Payne was once just like him. And when he collapses and you see the guilt on Payne, he runs into a different room and he tries to shoot himself and he confesses everything. It does feel a bit rushed. The ending does feel a bit rushed, but it's just done so well. And it shows that Payne, despite falling into the corrupt Jim Taylor political machine that I've mentioned quite a few times, I'll acknowledge that, he still has a heart and he does care for Jefferson Smith and he does the right thing in the end. Now, I gotta say this about Jim Taylor because some people will say, oh, well, this is directed by Frank Capra. He's no different than Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, they're both despicable, corrupt people. But even though Mr. Potter's way more Jim Taylor is present and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, at least that's how I observed it. I landed up like each time I watched this movie, I landed up hating Taylor more than Potter because as corrupt and horrible as Potter was, Taylor in the third act of the movie, when he's sending his slugs out to terrorize and attack and harass the good people of his home state, including boy rangers, and people are getting hurt and they're getting hosed on. Like, that's truly awful. And that made me really hate that character. And one of the things I would have wished to have seen, and I've heard that there were changes to the ending. There was going to be an ending where Jefferson Smith and Miss Saunders went back to Smith's home state. Everyone celebrates. Smith visits Payne, forgives him, and the Jim Taylor scheme is done and over with. It's broken up, and I think Taylor gets arrested. I know some people would have liked to have seen that. I would have liked to have seen that, but it doesn't ruin the movie for me. In fact, I would say that even though I feel like the ending gets a bit rushed, I feel like this movie is close to perfect as an old movie could be. And I feel like this is definitely one of, if not the best movies of the 1930s because the movie nails quite a few genres in here, as I mentioned before: comedy, drama, and politics. The characters, the way they're developed through the movie, I thought was handled well. But to me, one of the most underrated scenes in this movie that I do want to throw out there, and it goes back to the end of the movie, is when Smith, after looking at the letters, it looks like he gives up hope, but the president of the Senate is giving him this hopeful smile. And you can't help but feel like this guy is one of the MVPs of the movie because he was very patient throughout this whole process. He was neither supportive nor looking down on Smith. Well, I mean, you can say he was supportive of Smith by giving him that encouraging smile and letting him speak, but not saying that, oh, Smith is right, I'm not going to expel him despite all you people. That's what I meant by what I said. But the fact that that smile that he gives to Smith, that friendly smile, encourages Smith to keep going despite all hope looking lost. And that's what helps push his Laws's speech. And James Stewart gives a lot of great speeches in this movie. And it was actually probably one of the biggest blunders that he never won the Academy Award for this. I think he won it the year after for Philadelphia Story. And people are saying that he only won it for Philadelphia Story. Not that he was bad in that, but because he didn't win it for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, it's considered one of the biggest blunders at the Academy. I don't know. But anyways, the point is that Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is probably my second favorite Frank Capra movie behind It's a Wonderful Life. And I think most people, if not every person, would agree It's a Wonderful Life is probably Frank Capra's best movie. I think Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is his second best. And it touches upon these political themes very well. It touches upon corruption well. It does it in a way that's entertaining, engaging. I mean, this movie, a lot of people say they learned what a filibuster is and how a bill gets passed throughout this movie. And that movie does it in a way that's not boring and lame. And I feel like this is a movie that social studies classes should probably show if watching movies are part of the curriculum. I used to be part of a history through media class, and I'm actually surprised that this movie was never even shown in that class. It was back in my senior year of high school. I think any history class that involves watching movies should have this movie recommended. But yeah, I'm gonna give Mr. Smith Goes to Washington an A plus. This is definitely one of the best pre 1960 movies of all time, one of the best 1930s movies of all time, and I highly recommend you check it out. And just a reminder that yeah, politics is ugly. It's a crazy time in America with politics, but perhaps this movie could inspire someone to be like Jefferson Smith one day. Maybe it'll help inspire those that might be like Senator Payne, that were once idealistic, that wanted to do good, but got corrupted and maybe are looking for a way out. May not like what they're seeing. Maybe this will help promote some ideals. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And what do you think of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Have you seen it? What you think about it? And what is your second favorite Frank Capra movie? I say second favorite because I know, as I said before, most people will pick It's a Wonderful Life, their number one favorite. But what's your second favorite? Because he's also made some great movies that hopefully I'll get to review on this channel at some point in the future. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, or if you haven't, please share this with someone that likes Frank Capra movies, that likes James Stewart movies, that like political movies, like 1930s movies. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.